Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Hey, come on into the Bible Bistro. I've got a great big bowl of hot pipe and Bible study ready for you today. Yes, sir. We're looking today at Psalm 18, verses 17 and 18. Now, we've been in the Theophany section, and that began in verse 7. Now, all the way through to verse 15, God is moving. As a matter of fact, He is affecting nature because He bows the heavens. I still can't say that right. He bows the heavens and comes down. You know, He set that firmament in the clouds, in the water, to separate between the water above and the water beneath. And that firmament was solid. Now, the one who made it bends it so that He can come down. And He comes down and He flies. And all that we've read this week from verse 11 to verse 15, He blasts with His nostrils and reveals the channels of water and exposes the foundations of the world. And He does all this for what reason? Verse 16 told us. And here we have the first praise of deliverance. Verse 16 begins that He sent from the heights and took me. He drew me out of great waters. So He sent, He took, He drew. Those verbs, very important here in this deliverance praise. Now today in 17:18, we're going to see what happens next because we have the second half of this deliverance of praise, or this praise of deliverance, number 1, and then we talk about the enemy. And then we begin with the first half of the praise of deliverance, number 2. So let's begin here. Let me read for you verses 17 and 18. He delivered me from my strong enemy, and from those who hated me, for they were too strong for me. They confronted me in the day of my distress, but the Lord was a staff for me. He delivered me from my strong enemy. Who's the strong enemy here? Well, the strong enemy in David's case could be Saul, could be Absalom, could be a multitude of folks, the Philistines, the Amalekites, the many people that David had to fight. So it could be any of those. Also could be the spiritual enemy of the soul. In David's case, I think we're probably talking about Saul, the strong enemy, the king who wanted him dead. And what did God do? He delivered. Why did He deliver? Because David, go back to verse 6, David in his distress said, I call on the Lord, and to my God I cried. So he's calling on Him for deliverance. In verse 3 of Psalm 18, I will call on the Lord who is to be praised. So from my enemies I will be saved. So the enemy is introduced there. Now we're talking about the strong enemy. And he's strong because David realizes his life is in jeopardy. Those that hated me, the strong enemy. So then the enemy is introduced there in the first phrase of 17, the strong enemy, my strong enemy. And then in the second part of that phrase, or that verse, and from those who hated me, for they were too strong for me. There it is again. They confronted me in the day of my distress. So when did the prayer begin? The prayer began in his distress. He says, they confronted me in the day of my distress. But then we have the praise for deliverance, number 2, but the Lord was a staff for me. He's that stick that you lean on, that walking stick that supports you. Some translations will actually have, He's my support, and that's great. That's really good. But I think we need to understand the idea is that it's a staff. It's that walking stick that helps you keep going, that you lean on for support when you're tired. You can't go any further. You're able to lean on this stick. Well, that's what the Lord is here for David. He's that staff that he leans on. So this deliverance comes from the Lord, who is his support, his staff, his help. And then tomorrow we're going to see the second half of this praise of deliverance, number 2, there in that first phrase in 19. So He will bring me out into a broad place. We'll talk about that tomorrow. So join me then on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.